Hi, everyone. Are you excited to be here today? I know I am. Well, it was a big challenge last Sunday on trying to get Renata on our talk show, but we got everything worked out, and so she's here today, and she is ready, I have to tell you. My name is Adele Shortino, and I am the host of excuse me, I almost said A for Artistic, which I also own, but this is the Artist to Artist talk show. And we're just so happy for you to be here. I see a lot of people coming in. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Wow, what a nice show. Great. I'm glad you're here. Well, I'm not going to hold anybody up. I am going to bring Renata right on up, and she is going to just wow you with all of her art and give you information on some of the ways that she creates her pieces, and it's just going to be a dynamite talk show. Hi, Leanne. I'm glad you're here. I don't know why you're having. Is everybody having problems with the sound? We did a test right before we went live. I was talking to Renata. There was no problems with the sound. You may have to go and just restart. Hi, Remy. Try that and see if that works for you. So we're going to go ahead and move forward and bring Renata on up. And we have a little surprise for you that we did not mention, and it will be towards the end of Renata's presentation. And I was so excited that we were able to put this together and also include this little bonus that you were probably not aware of. But here we go. This is Renata, and I'm bringing her up right now. Hi, Renata. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you.
So great to have you here. I forgot to mention to everybody that we do have a bit of a delay between our conversations. So there's nothing wrong with your setup when you're listening to it. I don't know if it's because of the distance or because of the broadcast. I just don't know. But just keep in mind that we have a bit of a delay. Renata.
Yeah, you're getting a bit, it's coming and going for me, so.
Yes, it is on your end too? Okay, all right. Well, I know that happens, and it's just sometimes these are technical issues that we just have to deal with when we're doing the talk show. But it's great to have you here, and
thank you.
I know everybody wants to know first. Go ahead.
No, I just say I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Good, good. Well, Renata, where are you located?
I'm in England. In Warrington, which is kind of between Liverpool and Manchester.
Okay.
I'm originally, well, I was born in Edinburgh, but I grew up in South Africa. So came back to England when I was about 24. So I've been here since then.
You're getting a lot of people coming in, and they're saying that, they're not having a problem. Okay.
Oh, good.
All right, they're saying they're okay. Sometimes it takes a little while for the sound to come in. So you just have to be a little patient. Hopefully everybody's getting their sound. So Renata, what got you started on sculpting, on creating figurative art?
Well, I was a textile designer, that's what I trained to be. And I worked as one for about 12 years. And then my job kind of just disintegrated because the computer design came into fashion. And for a long time, there actually wasn't a lot of design in fabrics. It was all quite plain fabrics. So I sort of found myself, I didn't have much of a job. I was always freelance, so there wasn't a lot of work for me. So for a while, I just kind of did a bit of DIY in the house. And then my daughter, she wanted to raise money for the tsunami. And she wants to make bracelets. And so we thought, well, let's make little faces to put on the bracelets. And she was selling them at her school. And so I just started doing some research on how to sculpt a face. I hadn't ever sculpted before. And then I found the one-of-a-kind fairies. And from the minute I saw them, I thought, oh, I really want to do that. And sort of went from there. And I joined a lot of the forums at the time, and for a while I didn't do any work. I just sort of read a lot and talked to a lot of people and saw what they were doing, and then got some tools and some clay for my birthday, and that was where I started.
So off you went, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I know that you sent me some pictures that you wanted to share with the group. And what I'm going to do, Renata, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I will run the presentation for you. So, so we'll have a bigger screen for you. Let me just do a switch out here.
Okay, so I think I'll just talk about the pictures that come up. So I put this picture up because I just wanted to show this is kind of where I start, the way I start to sculpt a face. So I start with a skull. I sculpted a skull a few years ago that I made a mold of the skull that I sculpted, and then every time I make a new face, I use that mold as my base. So it's a bit different to the way I first started where I started from the ball. And I just personally find that this works better for me. It sort of keeps you more, for me anyway, it sort of keeps me in a structure, you know, to sort of map out the face. And then these are just these are progress shots of the painting. So sort of building up layers and paint, starting with sort of just the shadow areas, and then sort of going to putting in the eyebrows and things like that. So it's working very fine layers, very, very small amounts of paint, and sort of blow dry them with an embossing gun in between, and just slowly build up from there. And then that's most of the makeup done. And I always leave the teeth to last, because if I didn't, I'll get paint all over the teeth, and I find I just can't get it off afterwards. So they always look a bit strange until they have their teeth on. And then this is sort of an example of the armature that I use. And all of this is my patrons, I'm sort of putting a tutorial up on all, you know, sort of the different ways that I do things. My armature, the way I make it so that the limbs can come for quite a while. So just mostly so that I can work on the arms and legs separately, and then I don't bake them, so they're still raw. And then I attach them when I feel like I've, you know, come to the point where I can attach them. I then glue them into the torso, and then I can carry on sculpting the rest. It just gives you a bit of, it makes it easier for you to, I find myself, it makes it easier for me to kind of handle it and get into the areas when the arms and legs are off the figure, if that makes sense. Oh, and that was just an example of what they look like before they have hair. And that again is just, you know, just a work in progress. She hasn't got any paint on, which sort of, I would at this point start to paint her body with a bit of, you know, the shadows, you know, painting on the shadows and things with like a very similar way to how I do the face. And that was just the finished figure. And then that was just an example. All these kind of photographs I post on my Patreon, and they're sort of bigger scale to this. And this is just one as an example of sort of a few of the stages kind of in painting one of the tattoos.
Renata, how long does it take you to do, when you're starting a sculpt, how long does it take you to make a figure?
It takes me about 2 weeks, although I'm trying to do it, you know, a little bit faster than that, but it usually takes me about 2 weeks.
Is that including, like, if you're doing any kind of painting insofar as creating a tattoo on the back or on the front?
The tattoos themselves, if I'm lucky, and some, because I'm sure probably other people can relate to this, you have ones that flow easily, and when they flow easily, it's sort of, maybe it'll take me a day, but I sort of try to map out my time, and I usually give myself 2 days to do the body art.
Right. I wanted to mention to the viewers that if you do have any questions, to please post them in the comment, and Renata will be glad to answer them. Now, I know that you come up with different themes. Like, I think you're working on the cats, I believe. No, the wildcats.
Yes. Yeah.
What determines these themes that you come up with? This is interesting.
Well, with the wildcat, it was really just because I did one, and it was mostly because I just wanted to paint the wild, I think it was the lion was the first one, and it kind of reminds me. When I was a textile designer, I did a sort of, I think it was for a curio shop, like a game park, where it had for quite realistic paintings sort of on this, because I designed the designs, which were then printed on fabric. So it was a design for a curio, some wild animals, and I had so much fun doing it. So I just kind of wanted to do something similar.
Okay. Now,
so I wanted a good excuse to do more, so I made it a series.
Okay, you've got a question here, and I'll put it up here. This is Leanne. Hey, Leanne. Have you demonstrated the way you make an armature from beginning to end on your site? I believe it's on your Patreon page, isn't it, Renata?
It is, yes. I have a tutorial on how to make the armature so that you can remove the arms and legs. At this point, I haven't done making hands and making feet, so it's the armature without the hands and feet at this point.
Okay.
But I'll bring, when I can, I'll add, tutorials on hands and feet as well.
I also noticed that you're very versatile when you're sculpting, Renata. I see that you do female sculpts and also male sculpts. Do you struggle with the male sculpts insofar as the faces, or, I mean, I know as much as I've tried to do a male, it winds up looking like a woman. So I know I know the bone structure and everything's the same, different, I should say, but you do such a phenomenal job on that, being able to switch back and forth.
Oh, thank you. I think the biggest thing is to measure with calipers. Have a face when you want to sculpt a face. Size it to the exact size that your face is going to be. So your reference picture, so if you have a page of reference pictures of whatever face you've decided to use, because I always sculpt from the face. I would never try to sculpt myself. I don't personally ever sculpt from my imagination. I use a reference picture. So I would size it, and I would always have a profile, a good profile. If you wanted to you sort of say you chose a model or an actor or something, because sometimes those people have a lot of photographs of themselves, and then I would also always find, so full face, and then I also type in facial profile picture, and a lot of the times you will find a really good profile picture of the same person, because that's where I start. I would always map out, once I've got my skull made, I would then, onto the skull, map out the profile, and then sort of work from there, because that sort of gives you a start where all the features are. And with men and women, it is just a question I think it is just a question of following your reference, and try to, I think it's also like what they say with drawing, where don't think about what you're drawing, just draw what you see. So I guess it would be the same with sculpting, just sculpt what you see. You don't think about whether it's man or female. you just kind of measure it, and then it should kind of work out.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting. Yeah, I really like using the calipers. I think it keeps me on track. Doesn't puts the nose where the nose needs to be, puts the eyes where the. I just seem to be. I've started using them a couple of months ago. I did tried to do a likeness and did a lot of measuring, and I could really tell the difference by using the calipers. It just measuring makes a difference.
I think as well, you've made a good point. Every now and then, doing a likeness is a really good thing. Whether you think you're capable or not, I think it's so good to do it, because
Yeah.
it really disciplines you to have to try to get exactly what you see in front of you. So it's
Exactly.
a discipline reminder. I mean, it can be frustrating because sometimes it's really nice to do things that are just free from your imagination. But every now and then, just to kind of bring yourself back to remembering the rules, I find myself is quite a good way to do that.
Well, that's good. We have a question here, Renata. She wants to know what's your favorite. This is Carrie. Hey, Carrie, do you have a favorite anatomy books or reference poses
Right.
and methods?
Hi, Kerry. I personally always use what is it called? It's the Female Anatomy for the Artist. I
Okay.
think that's the right thing. I can put a link if you want somewhere to
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
it's
We can put it in after the broadcast. We can go ahead and put any kind of reference in the comments.
okay, great. I'm sure a lot of people know about it. I haven't ever seen anything better than it. It gives you a library of every kind of pose you could ever think of. And for every pose, you get 8 photographs at different angles of the same pose. So it sort of goes around the body. And so what I usually do is I'll sign up for a month, or they've changed it. It used to be sign up for a month and then you got a limited amount of downloads a day. But they have changed it now where you sort of have a one-off payment. It is a subscription, so you do have to unsubscribe, but you get a set amount of downloads for the month. But I don't stay on myself. I just go on for a while, because you can get so many that you then have them as in a library, that you can then use afterwards. So it's not something you kind of need to stay on for a long time. So that's really the thing I use the most.
Yeah, she said that she used to subscribe to that, so she's going to go check it out again. Okay, great. I know I'm going to bring. You finished a piece. I think it was a commission piece. She's sitting right there by you.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'm going to drop. Yeah, I will drop down and I'll bring up the bigger pictures.
Oh yeah, that's the finished face. That was actually the first portrait I'd done in a while. I find if I had to do portraits all the time, I think it would be too restrictive for me. But every now and then, I feel like I'm ready to do another portrait, and that's the one I've done lately. And that was I decided, because I just thought clay was not going to be good enough to use as fabric in this one, because it needs to be soft and flowing. So it was quite a challenge, because I don't do a lot of fabric art, but I would really like to get better at it. So I swallowed hard and did it. I actually did a few patterns in cotton first. I had a few tries first to make sure I had the pattern right. Oh, hi, Remy. Do you recommend any other paints other than Genesis? I don't use anything else. I've never found anything else that I thought integrated into the clay as well as Genesis does. I always find that acrylic tends to sort of sit on top of the clay, and it can be a little bit tacky sometimes. I don't know if you have to use some kind of a primer or something with it, but I have never done that. I've only ever tried to paint it directly, and in my experience, I haven't really liked the finish. Whereas with Genesis, when you paint it, I dry it with an embossing gun, but I then also bake it in the oven. And once you've baked it in the oven for sort of 20 minutes, when it comes out, it's very matte, and it feels like it's very much part of the clay, and it has a very smooth finish. So I always use Genesis. And yeah, that was the finished result of the Kings of Leon heads. I had to sculpt the heads, send them off to LA, I think it was, to have their photo shoot for the album, and then they got posted back to me, and then I had to build the figures, and it was I had to sculpt them in the same as the photograph they'd used as their promotional picture for the album. And that's another one of my series. Just a really good excuse to make another moth. Hi Elisabetta. Hi, can I ask you what your favorite? My favorite polymer clay is Fimo and Cernit. Usually, what I do is mix half and half of Fimo and Cernit. It gives you quite a firm clay, but that's also a little bit tacky, so that it adheres to itself quite easily. Because I haven't actually ever tried Fimo on its own, which is something I'd actually like to experiment with and just see what I feel about that. Because I think Fimo probably is slightly more firm than Cernit, but I also don't like it when clay is too firm and when it doesn't really want to adhere to itself very easily. So at the moment, for quite a few years now, I've been using the mix of Fimo and Cernit. Hi, sorry, I need to say your name right. Alexandra, hello. Do you use a specific color palette or just the starter set? I have certain colors that I always go back to in the Genesis paints. I generally will use the same colors to mix, which I then mix together to get like the shadows. It will depend on what the clay is. Sometimes if the clay is very light, then I would obviously need to use a lighter shadow color. But I have sort of few colors that I always use. Usually sort of yellow ochre, raw umber, ultramarine, and then there's a flesh tone that I've been using, but only just because I have it. You could probably get by without using it, I think.
Renata, I wanted to ask you, when you're doing the Genesis paints, are you doing the full body? Are you painting the full body or just accenting it with the Genesis paints?
Just accenting it. Yeah,
Okay.
just the shadows. Yeah. I mix the clay color to be the main color, in the beginning.
All right. Have you ever used any kind of the powdered pastels or anything prior to the clay being cured, like applying the pastels, curing it, and then do Genesis on top of that? Have you done like that as well?
No, I haven't, but I would like to try that actually. I have seen people do that and it sounds like a good idea. So I've not actually tried it myself.
Okay, let me check and see. Okay, I think we're okay with questions. I'll bring up your presentation back up.
Oh, and that was another one of the Wildcat figures. Believe it or not, those beads took 2 days to make. And when I decided to, I had the thing is, they took so long, and I was surprised it could take so long to just put some beads on. But it was extremely therapeutic to do. I really enjoyed it, even though it took ages, and I was amazed it could take that long. Hi, Jian. Sorry, I'm terrible at saying names properly. I hope I got it right. Do you sculpt in series? Yes, I do. I sculpt the hands and bake them. So they're like they would be separate, and the feet as well, and the head as well. I then put it all together. In fact, I've got this figure here, which is I'm working on at the moment. So I can show you. If I can get it in. Her feet are sculpted and cured already, baked already, and her hands are baked already, and obviously the head. So then everything else I would then sculpt, because I find that, I mean, underneath there is an under armature that has been baked already, so that you're not adding too much of a massive clay onto just the wire. So underneath there is a small layer of baked clay already. But I like to keep it where all of it is in one, because you can then adjust the pose, because I find, I don't know if anyone else finds this, but I find it impossible to figure out the pose exactly from piecing it together. It's much easier for me to be able to, at this point I can move it. It's still very pliable, whereas I think if I had areas that I'd baked and were set solid, I obviously could, well, you could still do it, because you could still break it and re-sculpt it and things like that. It would just be more difficult. Oh, and that was just a close-up of the mad hair that I had a lot of fun making.
So the hair that you're using, is that mohair? Is it synthetic? I mean, tell us a little bit about the hair that you use on your pieces.
Well, mostly I use a lot of viscose, because I find it the right scale. It's very, very fine, so it looks in scale with the small face. It's also very easy to apply, because it's not very bouncy. It's very soft, and so especially when you're doing something where it's sort of a hairstyle, it's up on your head or something, or in a bun, then viscose is easy, because it doesn't fight you. It's really like, it'll do what you ask it to do. In fact, it's the same with, I have sort of been moving over to using quite a lot of animal fibers, because I found I on principle don't use animal fiber or animal hair that is on a pelt, because those animals have been killed, and I don't want to hurt an animal in the making of my dolls. So my preference is to try to know where the fiber is coming from. So there is a really good place in England, a New Barn, I think it's called, where it's sort of an ethical fiber shop, and all the animals they live on the farm. It's very nice, because when you get the fiber, it says donated by, and it gives the name of the animal. So it's very nice. And I have found, since I've been using that, I really like the Surrey alpaca. In fact, that figure that you've just shown was using Surrey alpaca, which is it's most similar, I think, to viscose. It's quite soft, very fine, and it doesn't have mohair has quite a bounce to it sometimes, so to try and tell it to do something can be quite difficult in a fight. So I find, that's my second best is Surrey alpaca.
Okay, well, great. We have a couple of questions. Here's one.
Hi, Marisol. Which wire would you recommend? Is that for the armature? I always use a galvanized wire. Apparently that's good, because it won't rust or deteriorate. I use different sizes depending on which part of the armature I'm working on. So it ranges from 2 millimeters to 1.6. Hi, Director. Which kind of brushes do you use for such tiling? Thank you. I use cheap brushes, because I'm terrible with looking after them. I use kind of quite a scrubbing motion when I apply the paint, so they don't last long for me. So I use nail art brushes a lot, because nail art brushes are very cheap, and they come in a big pack, and you get all different. I mean, some of them you don't use. There's fan brushes and things like that I don't use, but generally you get quite a few decent brushes in the pack, and then you don't have to worry, because they're not expensive. And I mean, I still use them for ages and probably should throw them out well before I do, but I like to keep the new ones looking new, which is a weird thing for me, but I do that.
Okay, here's another one.
Hi, Anne. How many years have I've been sculpting dolls now for, I think it's 10 years, just about 10 years.
I have another question, but I'm going to read it because it's pretty lengthy and I think it's going to cover the whole screen. Okay, this is Lux, and it's saying it's Bunny from Patron.
Oh, hi, Bunny.
Saying haven't been too active there lately, but I was wondering, when you're sculpting, have you ever had the clay on your sculpture crack when you left it alone for a couple of days, pre-baked? I had that happen with a clay batch mixed as you recommended. Did I do something wrong with the ratio?
No, I haven't. How many days did you leave it? Was it a very long time? Because I do find, I haven't personally had that happen, and the only things I could say that might cause that would be if you put clay over cured clay, raw clay over an underarms of cured clay. If it's quite a thin layer, especially, it will leach the oils out of the slowly so it gets absorbed by the baked clay, and that can cause cracking. I sometimes, I mean, if I'm working on a body like this one, I'll be working on it for 3 days, and I don't find, but then I guess I'm working on it every day, so I don't ever really leave 4 to 5 days. I haven't ever left something as long as 4 to 5 days. I guess I imagine it's probably because if you've got baked clay underneath, that it probably has absorbed some of the oil. I'm not sure what you could do about it, apart from perhaps just scrape back some of the clay, not maybe right the way to the base, and then just sort of sculpt over with some fresh clay. The thing, if your clay is very dry when it's in a mix, if you add more mix quick, that can help it. But it also will make your clay more sticky. So I don't know. I mean, I guess if you know that you're going to have to leave it for a while, it might be best to add a little bit more mix quick to your original mix, but it will make your clay more sticky. So I think it's a bit of a, I'm sorry, but I don't have a really good answer for that. Hi, Marisol. Could you please write in the references the name of the shop? I will do that, yes. I will give you a link to the shop that I get my hair from.
Yeah, any reference information, we will post it after the broadcast within the comments, so you'll be able to have Renata's links, the link to the Patreon page. And just now that I mentioned that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Patreon page, your site there that you are.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's just what I do on there is whenever I'm making sculpting a figure, I have gone to a good habit now of filming and taking photographs, as I go, and then I give the film to my husband, and he edits it and makes little short films of. So I have films that sort of the making of the head is usually about 20 minutes long. And it's filmed in real time, obviously not all the whole way through, but it sort of clips through the making of that head. And then I do another film for the whole making of the body, and then I do for each figure that I'm making. I also show photographs of sort of the making as well. So sort of, there's still photographs of the progress through to the finished face, and the same for the body. Then I also have a few sort of diary videos that I sort of post intermittently. Those are mostly just to keep ahead of where I am, because sometimes I'm a bit ahead of where my films are. Not much. I'm not on a different figure, but I sort of try to keep so that if anyone's interested, knows where I'm at that time. Then I also do a Q&A once a month where if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask me. And then I think it's the most popular, most important thing, I guess, is that I do a tutorial every month. And this month is the biggest requested tutorial, I think, and that is on making eyes. So I'm going to post that on the 30th of June. So and I have a tutorial on sculpting a mouth. I have one on the armature, on making a skull, and then molding it. I think that's where we are now.
Yeah, I know your patron pages site is just amazing, and you are just a fountain of information and so generous. And
Thanks.
I tell you, the price is phenomenal. And for those that have not signed up, you should at least go in there and take a look and see what Renata has to offer, because it's a lot of money. It's a lot of information for your money, and you just do a phenomenal job with the videos and the tutorials. And not only that, but you get back with everybody on a lot of questions.
Yeah, I really am enjoying it.
Yeah.
In fact, the people inspire me as well. So I get as much out of it. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's great. It's just a great place to be.
Thank you.
I wanted to bring this particular figure up on the screen, and I just would like for you to talk about this piece and tell us what inspired you.
Oh, yes. I had thought of that. I'm trying to think of where I came from. I think about a year before I made him, I saw somebody in the gym with such a cool hairstyle, and I thought I really need to make a figure with that hairstyle. And so it sort of went from there. And at the time, we'd been watching Prison Break, so I always get my inspiration from something I've seen around, and so that was where I got sort of inspired for the face. I can't remember what his name is now, but one of the actors in Prison Break. And then he just presented this large back area where I thought I didn't want to give him wings, so I thought, well, I'll just paint wings, because any excuse to do body art I will take it. And then, I'm trying to think where her inspiration came from. Her inspiration actually started with the hair, because I loved the colour, and I thought I need to make something that sort of looks kind of soft and gentle, basically. And then I found I had a piece of silk left over, and I thought, oh, I really need to use that. I'm always in a dilemma on whether to use silk or not, because there is the issue of whether the cocoons are boiled in order to get the thread. So, but what I have sort of made a bit of a concession with myself, that if I buy secondhand silk, then maybe that's okay. I'm not sure if it is, but I haven't yet found anything that is as amazing as silk, and it dyes so beautifully. It's just so much fun to dye it. Yeah, that shows it more. It's I sort of did a sort of ombre, which is the best invention ever. It's just so much fun. And silk just when you scrunch it as well, it sort of stays. If you scrunch it well, it's damp. It just stays in that sort of pattern. It's just really good. I haven't found anything as good as that. Oh, and then she was my second shy moth, actually, and that was another excuse to do a series. My series are basically just a good excuse, really, to do something big. And with her, I wanted her to look shy, and I wanted her to have really big eyes. So that was really just where I started, and I just thought I'd sort of go from there. And then my unicorn, which I had a lot of fun with, because everything at the moment you see in sort of in shops and things, very sort of pastel colours and glittery, and sort of unicorns and mermaids. So I thought, well, let's do something. Instead of doing body art, I'm going to make some jeans that I wish I could wear. So that's where she came from.
Renata, when you're getting ready to do a piece and you're wanting to achieve a certain skin color, do you do your testing? You do testing on your clay mixes before you start the actual sculpt?
Do you mean the clay color or the?
Yes, the clay color. Yes. Do you do your testing on different clay colors and bake it, or do you just go for it?
I generally just go for it these days because I range between using the Fimo Rose and the Fimo Beige, and then with the Cernit I use like the flesh color. So I know sort of what they are, like the rose and the Cernit flesh are kind of on the pinky side, and I know the beige is quite sort of neutral coloured, really. Um, so I know that if I want sort of something a bit neutral, then I would just add only a small amount of the rose. So I just sort of I know kind of what I use, and I sort of, a lot of the time I just stick to that. Elizabeth, you said do you use brown for skin shadows? Oh, are you thinking of the paints? Yes, I do use raw umber. I wouldn't use it uh, pure. I mix in, I mix my colors. So yes, I do use raw umber quite a lot for mixing. I know Fimo doesn't have like a dark skin tone, so in terms of mixing, what I've been doing lately is experimenting, especially with the wildcats, and doing different tones of dark skin, which I'm really enjoying trying, which means you have to take more of the pure Fimo colors and then sort of mix them into the flesh colors and to try and get different ranges of dark skin.
You want to share with the viewers your new prop that you have there? You want to
Oh,
show them there?
my chair. Okay. This is my chair that my husband has been making me some props, and this is the latest one. So it needs painting, but I'm very, very pleased with it. It's it's some brass, isn't it? Brass wire, and it's what do you call it? It's soldered. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. It's been soldered. It needs painting still. So and I want to try and distress it. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with doing that. And it has a little wooden slatted seat, and he put some little like nails in there as well. Sorry, I can't think of words. Yeah, hello, Jan. I do use I don't use anything other than the Fimo Pro. Not for any reason. I think you get into a habit of using certain things, and yes, that's what I use.
Well, I know David really did a beautiful job on that chair, but I know you've been telling me about other things that you've been doing. Is David around?
Oh yes, yes, come on. This is my husband, David. So he's the one who made the chair.
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Well, we're just excited to have both of you here. It's like a bonus. I know the viewers are going to be so excited to hear about what you've been doing. You've just opened up an Etsy shop too, didn't you?
Yes, it's only because Renata had asked for a sword a while back. Well, actually, I did the long claw sword for Jon Snow. That was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then she wanted a katana. So I got into it. I thought, oh, this is quite fun making swords. So yes, I've made a few extra swords, and I've got an Etsy shop, and just see how it goes.
Well, I'm going to bring them up so everybody can see what you've been doing. I'm going to drop down and bring your swords up.
Right, so that's the katana that was with, I think it was Ayaka.
Yeah.
The one that was sitting cross-legged. So that was made with, I think it's all mostly aluminium because it was easier to work with. And that's just a different view, and without all the pieces being painted black. quite fiddly at such a small scale, but it was quite fun in the end. And I was actually quite pleased with the results.
You do all that traditional?
Oh, yeah, I did the cotton wrap as close as I could get to a proper samurai sword kind of handle one. Yeah, and that's just a scale comparison, because I actually do have a couple of swords, real size swords, so that was the comparison of the small sword against the big one.
So, David, how long does it take you to make a sword? Did you hear me?
No,
sorry.
How long does it take you to make a sword?
It's a good question, because I did it in bits and pieces. So the ones I did after that one took quicker, because I then knew more what I was doing. So I would say it probably took maybe a couple of days, but if I had to put it in hours, probably 15 to 20 hours, maybe. Only because it was quite fiddly. And like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing while I was doing it. So.
You built a machine because you wanted to. You needed to make it the blade sort of be an angle, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
And so you made a machine. You sort of constructed a machine that would then file. So it's sort of.
Yeah, it's just based on the idea that, well, it's a thing that people use for actually sharpening knives. So all it is it's something that's got holes, so you can have them at various angles. And I just thought that was easier to do, because I was trying to use a Dremel to actually get the bevel on the blade to give it that angled look. And I couldn't get it right. And then going through YouTube, as we do, I saw that and I thought, oh, I'll give that a try, and that worked really, really well. So I ended up constructing something to make it a bit easier.
Well, they're just phenomenal. Are you going to be taking any kind of commission work if anybody requests a certain style of a saber or a sword or a dagger?
I would be open to the challenge, of course. I defaulted to Japanese swords because I've done Japanese martial arts, so we did practice with the Japanese style sword, so that's my first interest.
Of course.
The long claw sword that I did for Jon Snow last year was interesting as well. But yeah, if someone came along and said, "Oh, could you do this for me?" I'd be more than willing to try. So, but yeah. So for the moment, it's Japanese swords.
Okay, well that's great. I'm going to go ahead and post your new Etsy link after the talk show, so everybody will be able to go in there and take a look at what you'll be putting in there. They're just very detailed. They're phenomenal, and you guys are just like dynamic duo.
Oh, thank you.
What fun. Thanks so much, David. I'm so glad that you jumped on in here. Oh, you also going to be doing furniture, right? I mean, Renata's got you busy.
Well, that was the first attempt, so hopefully they'll get better. But I'm fairly pleased with that. Right? As long as the customer is happy, then I'm happy.
That's interesting. Now, I believe, Renata, you work, your figures are 10 inches, right? They're 1/6 scale. Okay. I think somebody just came in here. They wanted to know how tall your sculptures were.
Yeah, it's usually 10 inches, about 10 inches. If something sort of, the basic scale would be 10 inches. Obviously, if they're on their toes, or it can range. But yeah, based on a 10-inch scale.
Okay. Leanne, yes, we will put David's Etsy site in the comments after the talk show. I'll put everything, the references and information. I have somebody else. Someone's asking if you're self-taught, Renata.
I suppose as much as you can be self-taught. Basically, I didn't go to any official college for sculpting, but you learn from others, don't you, really? So I've got a lot of people who have helped me along the way. You know, starting with the forums in the old days. I think it was called ODA. That was I don't think they're around anymore, but that was the first forum that really, the people on there helped me so much. So I couldn't say I'm self-taught. I'm helped by a lot of people. Mark Dennis as well, all of his information. Deb Wood helped me out too. So I haven't had an official education in sculpting, but there's a lot of people that help me.
Well, you have definitely found your style. It doesn't matter what you put out there. We know who created it.
Oh, thank you.
They're very recognizable, and that's sometimes that's hard to achieve because we're all over the place trying to figure out our style, our design, and you just you got it. You got it. It just really well for you.
I've been really lucky because I do it all day, every day. So
yeah, you are lucky.
Yeah, it is lucky because especially in the beginning, you feel so passionate about it. You want to be doing it all the time. I can't imagine how it must feel when you have to go to a job and then only do it part time. Whereas I could just obsess over it 24 hours and it would be fine. So that's helped me a lot. That's I've been lucky.
Yeah, well, yes, you have been lucky. I know there's a lot of us that do work and sculpt in the evenings, sculpt on the weekends, and anxious to finish them. And of course, as you know, practice, practice, practice makes it even that much better and get there quicker.
Yeah, and like Bunny was saying about like the cracking, I mean that's really frustrating. But sometimes like I've been lucky that I don't have that problem, But it must be very frustrating to find things like that happen. You've got to leave and choices to leave.
I do want to mention some of you are just coming in on the talk show. This will also replay. So after the broadcast ends, you can go back in there and see it from the beginning. For those that just came in, there was a presentation of Renata's sculptures, and you'll be able to see that in the replay. And they are the figures. We'll also be posting the website, the patron website, which is phenomenal, by the way. You need to go in there and take a look at that. And also her Facebook page. So there's going to be a lot of areas you'll be able to see her work. Right now, what are you working on now, Renata?
Well, I'm making a figure for this chair. So she's looking a bit, a bit of a mess at the moment. But that's what I'm working on now.
I was noticing you, in fact, I asked you this before we started on the talk show. I noticed that you completely finish out the head, and I'm talking about painting it, not hair, before you attach it to the body. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah. I paint the whole head and bake it in the oven before I attach it to the body. That is because I just find that when it's on a stick, the head's on, which it's basically on a piece of wire because it's sculpted onto the baked skull. Because I mold the skull and then bake that, so that's hard. And then it's just obviously then sculpt the face, then bake it and then paint it. But it means because it's on a wire and quite a strong wire, you can hold it, you can turn it upside down. Because I actually find getting symmetry, especially with things like eyebrows, and also just being able to get to the areas. Sometimes if you've got to work on the side of the face that isn't natural to your arm, it can be a bit difficult. So you can just turn it upside down, sort of look at things. Also, I find if you look at things upside down, they look different. So it's a good way to check symmetry and things like that.
Yeah, so that's a good tip. That really is. And you had mentioned a little earlier that your next tutorial on the patron page was eyes? No. Yes? Yeah.
That's the biggest requested one, and yes, it will be this month. In fact, this month will be the first way to make, because I have been obsessed with eyes. I spent 5 years probably being obsessed with trying to find the way to make eyes that was right, and I went through a lot. And I'd always get to something and think, yes, this is it, and then I'd always change. But this one, I felt sort of confident to start to share it when I found the cabochons, using cabochons. And I used them for a while until I felt like, yeah, I'm probably not going to change this. So then I did quite a few years ago, I did a tutorial, which is still up on my website. But since then, I still use the cabochons, but I have sort of changed a few things about it that I think is better, makes it better now. So this month I'm going to show how I do that using the glass or crystal cabochons. But I'm also working on a way to do a very similar way to make eyes using resin, because maybe you can't get hold of the cabochons, or you want them to be a different size than you can find, something like that. So I've been sort of working on that. So this month will be the glass ones, and then the month after that I'll do one on sort of very, very similar technique, but using resin.
Okay. Joan is asking, well, she didn't hear you at the beginning, but she's asking you your paints. You mainly use Genesis, correct?
Yeah. Hi, Joan. Yes, I always use Genesis. I actually don't use anything else. I find that acrylic can tend to be a bit sticky. It sort of has a bit of slight, for me, I find it has a slight tacky feel to it when it's on the polymer. I don't know whether that's because I didn't use a primer underneath or anything like that. But I've just always, since then, just used Genesis, because once you've, in between the layers of Genesis, I use an embossing gun to kind of dry. But then at the end, I always bake it for 20 minutes. And once you've baked it, it really sets it into the clay, and it has a really nice matte finish. Do you have tutorials on hands and feet? Well, I will be doing tutorials on hands and feet in the future. Yes, definitely do a tutorial on painting. I'm open to any suggestions on tutorials for the future, definitely.
Yeah. Renata, you're going to be posting those in your Patreon page, right?
Yes, that's it. Sorry, yes. Once a month, I do a tutorial of usually whatever's the most requested. If there's something most people would really like to see, I'll cover everything. As the months go by. But at the moment, eyes are the obsession. So we'll be doing eyes every way we can.
Everybody's going to do eyes. Well, I tell you, the color of the eyes on this last sculpt you did, it's like an electric blue. Her eyes are just beautiful.
Those eyes I used for the tutorial. So those are actually the tutorial eyes. I did
amazing. Amazing eyes. Amazing. Yeah, that was the first thing that caught me. Well, besides the costume, because I love costume. But the eyes caught me.
It's great. I love eyes. Eyes are just, I guess it's because they're the first thing you go to when you see someone.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're powerful. And they just always, I love how to get the perfect eyes, still an obsession for me, and will probably continue to be.
Yeah, well, they're just wonderful. The detail is just amazing. If anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to post them. We'll be wrapping this talk show in about 5 or 10 minutes. But it's been great to have you guys on the show. And David, again, congratulations on your Etsy. And hopefully everybody will at least go in there and take a look at what you've got going. I know you're going to be adding more things. Renata's got you busy making props.
Yeah, I've got a list of things I want him to make for me.
Boy, David, you're in trouble.
I'm like,
No sleep for me.
No.
No sleep for you. So what are your, I know you're working on this piece. How far in advance do you start thinking about projects? Like, what are you going to do next? Or you just wait for an inspiration to cross you?
I always work on 2 heads when I start. I do 2 heads.
2? Okay.
Yeah. So I get them sort of to a point of being painted. And then I'll go back to the first head and finish the rest of the figure. And the main reason for that is that I can't have an excuse not to work them. Because say for some reason, the first figure I have to leave it for a while for, maybe it's in the oven and needs to sort of bake or something. I've always got something I can do, so I can then move on to the other figure. So I definitely have usually 3 or 4 ideas sort of ready to kind of move on with.
Yeah, I think most artists are the same way. They're as they're working on something, they're already thinking of what else they're going to do. Or yeah, I think I'd have to live at least 10 lifetimes to get all my projects done.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we have to just keep dreaming and hoping that we can get to most of them. Let's see if there's any more. Let's see. I don't see any more questions. Again, I would like to thank everybody for being here, and the links that we've been talking about and the references, we will be posting them in the comments area. I see that Carrie has another question here.
Oh, how do I keep my sculpts clean? Well, first of all, don't do this and wear black while you're working. That's bad. And the other culprit is this fabric is terrible. Any fabric that this is velvet, and the fibers just, even when you don't realize it, they can float up into the air. And I had cleaned, when I finished that one, I cleaned my desk, and then I then started a new phase and found that I was getting these fibers coming from who knows where, and it's because they don't hide in a corner and come out when you're working. It must be like a magnetic attraction or something. But basically, normally, not when you're using something like that, to clean, I always, after every figure, especially if you've used hair or anything like that, I would then thoroughly clean my desk. But every day, I always have a piece of old clay that I have on my desk. I have a glass, I work on this glass piece of, so it's like I think it's a chopping board, yeah, it's a chopping board, a kitchen chopping board. And I've had it for years, and I just run the clay over, just this old piece of clay, I just run it over the glass to sort of get rid of any fibers. So that's one way I do it. I also use sometimes my handheld vacuum cleaner and just run it over my desk just to sort of get any pieces that I haven't seen. Sometimes you still get them, definitely, as you do get fibers that you just can't help. Every now and then, just do, sort of knead this piece of old clay just to maybe get pieces of fiber off your fingers if you have any. Then, if you still get fibers, which I do, I would then wait until the figure is baked, and then I use acetone. And as when they're sitting just on the surface, then the acetone will rub them off quite easily.
Now, I believe she's, I think this is also what she might be asking is the sculpts itself. After you finished sculpting them and there might be fibers in it, just to clean it up before you bake, what do you use?
What do I do? I try to clean as I go. If I see any fibers, I'll just sort of pick them out with my knife, my blade. And then if there are still some left, I would then, well, I would really just look when magnifiers work well as well, because and I live with my magnifiers on a lot of the time, and that will pick up any bits that you can see. So I would just try and take them off before, if I've smoothed it out. Smoothing also removes fibers. I use white spirit to smooth, just the tiniest bit of white spirit on a brush. Literally, like, dip your brush in, wipe it off very, very thoroughly so it's almost dry, and then I use that to smooth the clay, and that often takes off a lot of the fibers anyway. But if you still find a few fibers on the clay when you're finished smoothing, then I would just take my knife or a pin sometimes and just try to pick them out, and then obviously smooth over it again. Once you've done all that, and you've baked it, and then if you then put your magnifiers on, which happens, and you still see one, then that's when I use the acetone on a piece of cotton wool or a flat. The cotton wool kind of wipes that you use for makeup, they're just flat. I use them and then just gently wipe the surface.
Okay, Gabriella wants to know, do you get any moonies?
Not very often, and the reason for that, I think, is because of what Deb Wood says. I learned that from her. She has a very detailed exploration of clay mixing, and she did some tests. I think it's on her website still. She does tests of different clays, and her advice was always to put a piece of opaque white into your clay mix, which I always do, and it seems to do the job. I mean, every now and then you will perhaps still get a muni. If you do, you can still. I think as you keep working with this clay, you get to know it really well and you get more comfortable with it. At first, I used to treat it with kid gloves and just feel like I had to be really careful. And as you go on, you get to know, sort of what it feels like when it's cured, baked properly. And you also realize that it's very forgiving. So, say you get a muni and it looks ugly and you need to remove it. Well, I would just dig it out with a knife, and I would then put the tiniest, almost like nothing, but the tiniest bit of liquid clay into where I had dug out, just as like a glue, but not enough that it looked like it was liquid, because that would cause its own bubbles. So it needs to be almost nothing, almost just a sheen on the clay. And then I would glue it. I would then press in a piece of raw clay and sort of smooth it down. And then, if you were going to paint it, I would use the embossing gun to sort of dry that area before, because obviously it would then go back in the oven anyway, because I would bake the Genesis paint, so it would then get baked properly at that point.
Leanne wants to know, when you said mineral, is that mineral spirits you were talking about?
It's white spirit. I call it thinners. It's here. It's just a basic. Make sure it's low odor, because and also keep the lid on when you're not using it, because obviously it does smell a bit. But that's what it's called here. I think in America it is called mineral spirits, because I remember when we were talking about it on Patreon, someone said in America it's called mineral spirits, but it is the same thing.
Okay, all right. Well, if there's any more questions, now's your opportunity to post them up here, because we're getting ready to wrap this up. So, Renata, what do you have to say for these sculptors, these artists that are just starting out? What is your thought on that? What can you say to them to inspire them?
Well, I remember when I started, as I said, the things that I would say to myself now is, don't be scared of. I sort of was very worried about the clay, so treated it very carefully in case I, broke it or did something wrong. So don't worry about that. What's really good, what I found was really good, is I got a lot of the Patricia Rose videos, because and most that I got out of that was just watching how freely she just used the clay like it was an old friend. She just she wasn't precious with it, and that was good. It was just, it boosted my confidence. The other thing is, you can never make a mistake, so don't ever worry that you're going to make a mistake, because, as I say, the clay is very forgiving, and if you don't like something, I have often, if I don't like the face, I will dig it out and dig the eyes out, scrape the whole face back, and sculpt over it again. So just don't worry, just enjoy it, have fun. Don't everything that you do, the most important thing is that you're enjoying it, and every one you do will be one step further along. I mean, the first one I made was a joke. When I think of it now, it was very rough compared to what I do now. And I remember I'd made a few figures, and then one of the people who still buy my work now, he made a very good comment. Also, that's another thing. Never be upset by criticism, because criticism is a treasure, really. If it's said with the best intention, it is really a treasure. And so he said the nose, it was very big, and I had never I'd made a few, but never actually noticed that. And that goes back to sort of measuring and following, sort of, especially every now and then, just following reference pictures quite closely, because that really helps you remember. But that was a treasure of a comment. So never worry about criticism; it's a good thing. Hi, Deb. Hi, Deb. Good to see you too. So yeah, that's probably my best advice. Don't worry, because I worried way too much. Most important thing is to make sure you bake something properly, and that it's once you've done it a few times, you can tell it gets easier and easier. So don't worry about it. It will come as you go, as you use it, as you keep using it. It gets easier, and you get to know it better. Any chance you'd share a picture of your first? I'll do that. I'll find it. Yeah, I'll find it. Yeah.
Yeah, we
say
can
hi to Mom, who's watching all the way
Yes,
in South
hi,
Africa.
Margie.
Yeah, I saw her earlier, and I was trying to find her so I can get her up there for you. It's great that she's here watching you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you find the picture, Renata, or you can post it in the comments after the show. So yeah, I think everybody, it's kind of nice to look back at what you started with and where you are now. I mean, and I think it's nice to look at that. Nice to see our progress.
It also, it actually, the person who bought my first one, I still know her now, and she's just lovely. So it's, for me, when I look at it, I remember her. So
that's nice.
Yeah. Hi, Michelle. Do you use your kitchen oven? No, I don't use my kitchen oven. For a long time, I had a mini oven, which worked well. It was all right. But then a few years into doing this, I decided to sell all my gold jewelry because I thought I didn't need that anymore. And I used the money to buy a proper big oven. So I have my own oven in my room. The way I did it was it was part of a kitchen unit. So it's a built-in oven, but obviously I don't have the whole kitchen units. But so all we did was buy the wooden unit that held the oven part, and then just got a basic piece of wood for the top. So it's just got a basic piece of wood on the top of it. And it's a convection oven. It's a proper kitchen size oven. So, it's definitely an improvement. But definitely, when you're starting, I used a mini oven for years, and that was also fun.
Yeah, that's great, Renata. Well, it's just been great having both of you here, and appreciate you sharing your information. And I know that you're going to get a lot of people visiting your site. Deb's got, let's see here. Deb's sending you much love from Minnesota.
Oh, thank you, Deb.
So thank you again to our viewers, and we're just always so excited to bring these talk shows and get you a little closer to the artists that you have always admired. And we've got great shows coming up in July and August, and I'll be posting those as well. And I'm sure Renata will be coming back. We would love to have her here when she gets a little further along with some other projects that I think everybody's going to want to see and admire and hear all about it. If you get
Can I just say thank you so much to you, and thank you to everyone who's been here. That's wonderful. It made my day.
You're welcome, Renata. It was just a real pleasure to have both of you here. And David, we wish you much success on your new venture of making chairs and knives. We look forward to seeing those on Facebook, and I will post your Etsy store as well. Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.